Hey everyone, welcome back to another tournament recap presented by Midway USA. These are not, the same as the full BMP Fishing the Series videos. So if you've seen these, you're familiar with them. If this is your first one, these are more of the technical breakdown of the baits, the rods, the reels, the lines that I used to finish up however I did in that event. And then kind of a breakdown of what I was looking for and the conditions we were faced with. So going into Lake Seminole down in Bainbridge, Georgia, the toughest event I've had since 2017. Finished up, I think, 99th, and it wasn't because I was doing the wrong things or really necessarily in the wrong areas. It was like I was just doing the right things in the wrong areas and the wrong things in the right areas, and I don't know how to explain it. And you might understand why once I get through explaining kind of how I went about breaking down Lake Seminole. So let's get into that. I really spent a lot of my time, focusing in on pre-spawn fish, places where I thought groups of fish were going to be coming in. Even though we had this big warming trend, it's still early in the year. And what I've learned is that if you don't have enough sunlight and daylight hours and stuff, these fish, they're not gonna make a big push until you have that, right? I mean, even if it's warm, you'll have some fish that move shallow and start doing the deal and getting ready to spawn, which we had here. But that's not the general consensus, right? The general population is gonna stay out. And I looked for that. I spent a lot of time fishing the hydrilla and the eelgrass and fishing really what I thought was gonna be the winning deal. And I never got very many bites. And I think it was because there was so much grass, you ended up having to find the voids of grass, the places that had less grass in it, which is a good thing. That's why Seminole is so healthy right now, is because it has so much vegetation. And I ended up, kind of narrowing in on Spring Creek. It had great clean water, had a lot of, good transition areas for those fish. And historically, it's a place that has always produced big fish. And so I spent a lot of my time looking around in there and, ended up getting on this drop shot bite. And I was fishing these outside grass lines and kind of these ditches that would lead into these flats and these spawning areas, and where I felt like, the biggest population of fish was staging. And I was getting a lot of bites doing it. And in practice, I had some decent bites where I thought I could catch a limited 2 3/4 to 3 pounders. And then I would go hunt 1 or 2 big bites up shallow and do something like that and have a really good event. Turns out when the event came around, those all turned into 12 inchers, and everything I caught on drop shot was little. But my key setup for that was the X-Zone Deception Worm. One of my go-tos. If you guys have followed along at all, you know that worm has won me a ton of money in the last few years. Throwing it on a #1 VMC Redline Finesse Nico hook, spooled up on 10-pound Seagar Gold Label fluorocarbon leader, and then attached, I use a Crazy Alberto knot to attach that to the braid, and that is 15-pound Seagar Smackdown braid. I always like a braid to fluoro leader when I'm fishing a drop shot on a spinning rod. It allows you to have a lot of sensitivity. You're able to put 15-pound test on here, which only has an 8-pound equivalent diameter compared to the fluorocarbon. But then the fluorocarbon is going to be clear, and then fishing around wood, right? There was a lot of standing timber on the outside of those grass lines. That's gonna do a lot better job around that wood than the braid. That really thin braid will cut into that old standing timber, where the fluoro is gonna act a little bit more like a rubber band, and it's gonna allow you to wrap those fish and bring those fish around when they get wrapped up in that standing timber. So super big key. Spooled up on my favorite spinning reel, the Daiwa Exist 3000. I think that's a perfect size for being able to balance your rod and your reel, right? You got that nice horizontal balance point. That's really key. And throwing it on the Alpha Angler DSR. Love that setup. Again, won me a ton of money. Another thing I was doing out on those outer grass lines, when the fish were not as much around the timber, but more so in the grass, or right on that grass line. A lot of it was growing up to about 6-7 foot, and I was throwing a jerkbait. So throwing the Megabass Vision 110+1 in Kasori shad. Spring Creek had super clear water. I felt like that was a really good balance in the mornings of kind of the flash and the transparency, getting those fish to come up and react. And I saw a lot of them on Mega Live come up to that bait, you know, and there really wasn't even much of a pause. They would just get it, which was awesome. Have that on Alpha Angler Slasher, spooled up on a Daiwa Zillion TWSV. One of my favorite reels for jerk baiting, cranking, chatterbaits, you know, just any moving type baits. I love throwing this reel. And a lot of that is due to the hyperdrive system. It's so smooth and fluid, which allows you to feel everything that bait is doing. And then I throw it on either 10 or 12 pound Seaguar Tatsu. This week I was throwing it on 12 pound just because of the amount of vegetation. I didn't need to get the bait way down there deep, and I just wanted to keep it right above that grass. 12 pound was the perfect balance of being able to get it down there, allow the bait to move, and have the durability and the strength to be able to get them away from that standing timber and that grass. And then once I got my limit, I ended up moving shallow because I felt like that's where I had a better chance of getting bigger bites. I never got those big bites out deep. Hats off to Joey Fuentes for figuring out where those bigger ones were on that bite. In practice, I felt like it had the potential to be like the deal, but I never uncovered it. And he figured out where to do that and how to make it happen. So when I went shallow, the next bait that I threw, just covering water, 1/2 ounce hand-tied swim jig, white and chartreuse with an X-Zone Mega Swammer on it. So it's 5.5 inch swim bait. Cut the head down a little bit, throwing that in white and chartreuse as well. And that bait is special. That tail never stops moving, so you're able to reel it through the pads, you stop it in those holes, and that tail just continues to kick the entire time. And I think that created a lot of those bites. If you guys have watched Carl at all on live, Carl Jochimson was doing that same thing, caught a lot of his fish on that. And then I ended up actually sight fishing a few that I didn't expect to sight fish, but went into some areas where I had seen some cruisers, some fish had locked down, and ended up catching those fish on the X-Zone Adrenaline Craw. It's my go-to bed fishing bait anytime I'm there. And the day that I did most of the bed fishing, it was kind of in and out, clouds and sun, and the fish I was fishing for were kind of in a little bit of dingy water and a little bit deeper, and they're hard to see. And I remember this one fish that I was almost right up on him, but he wouldn't leave the bed and he wouldn't react when I was just dragging the bait through. But as soon as I would snap the bait, he would react. And once I figured that out, I ended up catching him pretty quick. But it was one of the craziest bedfish I've ever seen. Where you would just keep snapping the bait and snapping the bait, and he would react and react and react. And he would actually eat the bait off the bed. He would never eat it in the bed. But once I figured that out, got him dialed in, throwing that on Daiwa 8.1-1 to Tula Elite PF. I love this extended handle. You've got a 100mm handle here, these bigger knobs. That helps offset that faster speed. So you get the speed to be able to make a lot of casts, but you lose power with speed. So that handle offsets that, and you're able to have the best of both worlds. And then it has a little bit shallower spool and a different braking system that allows you to have a very smooth and fluid entrance and retrieve when you're fishing that. And Alpha Angler hitter for the go-to rod. Forgot to mention the swim jig. That's on the Alpha Angler Zilla go-to 50-pound Seaguar Smackdown braid in Stealth Gray, and the Daiwa Stize. That is my workhorse power fishing reel when I've got braid, heavy cover. I like those flat knobs. It just seems to do a really good job of, again, kind of that balance of being very fluid, but having a bunch of power. So pretty simple week. Wish I would have caught them better. Again, like I said, guys made the top 10 doing the exact same things that I tried doing. It just didn't work out this week. So frustrating, but a learning experience. And we always say you either win or you learn. So this week we learn at Lake Seminole. Appreciate you guys following along. There'll be more of these videos throughout the year. We do one for every Elite Series event and every Bassmaster Open that we fish. So appreciate Midway USA supporting us, allowing us to do this content for you guys. Make sure you guys support them. Go to midwayusa.com. Check out all the gear that we use this week. We'll catch you on the next one.